Okay, guys, welcome back. And it immediately falls down. Brilliant. Brilliant. This is great, especially for a video called Taking Advice versus trusting yourself. Is that what we're going to call it? I think so. Okay, welcome back, guys. Sorry, technical difficulties. But today we are talking about the great concept of taking advice versus trusting your own judgment. And I did a TikTok about this, and then I was like, you know what? We could do a long form video about this because it's kind of a big deal. I feel like this is still, sorry, the ADD perfectionist in me is kind of like, no, this isn't quite right. That's better. Yes, excellent. There's no glare. Okay, so in your life, many people will try and tell you what you should do. And I guess this comes back to the whole conversation we had about what you should do and that kind of thing. But I think there's a fine line between somebody telling you what to do and somebody giving you advice. There are those people in life where, like you'll be like telling them a situation and they're like, well, like clearly you stupid idiot, like you just have to do this. Like clearly, like you just have to solve this and move here and do this. And you just wanted someone to kind of listen to you. You didn't really want like a solution. You were just like, I was just kind of hoping somebody would listen, but they kind of tell you what to do. That is quite different than just giving advice. Like I love giving advice to my friends. I think it's really fun to just like listen to their situations and, be like, well, like I think you'll handle it really well, but, don't forget to, take care of yourself, once in a while or something. You just give that little bit of advice and whatever. But throughout your life, you will have people giving you advice and they're really expecting you to like follow it to a T, like your parents or a guidance counselor or a teacher or a friend or a mentor. They're going to be like, you really need to do this. And you don't have to really do that. You can do whatever you want, right? Oftentimes these people are coming from a place of love. They're just like, you know what? I love you. And I really think that like, this is the way forward. And that's great. That's super good. That's positive. We like that. We not casting any doubt on that. However, there are people who give advice purely for their own narcissism. They feel like they could just jump into your life and solve all of your problems for you. And that is not good. We don't want to do that. We don't want to be that guy, that girl, that person, because it's just not a good look, And at the end of the day, like you get to choose, you get to make a decision. So I guess that's on one side. And then on the other side, of course, we have trusting your own judgment and making your own decisions. And honestly, this is the side that I heavily favor. Sorry, I'm having a problem with words today. I heavily favor this because I personally believe that you have lived your life up until this point and done a pretty good job of it, and at the end of the day, the only person who's really going to know what you should be doing with your life is you, because you're living it and you're experiencing it and like, where you want to go. So, taking advice, that's great. Trusting your own judgment, I kind of favor that. I think it's a balance, but I definitely favor the trusting your own judgment part of it because, like I said, you know what you're doing, you know what you should be doing, and I think you're best equipped to solve the problems in your life because you're living them. I think it's pretty basic. Like, I'm not saying anything like revolutionary here, and I know I'm not. Now, the interesting part comes when we talk about balance and we're trying to find a way through both sides. You know what I mean? So really it comes down to having the ability to take advice, not offend everybody when you decide to not follow that advice, but also like mixing in your own judgment. And that can be tricky, like it's surprisingly easy to offend people, especially when they're just like, well, you didn't follow my advice. Like, what's the point? Like, oh my gosh. It's like, well, Advice doesn't have to be followed, you know? I give my friends advice all the time and they don't follow it, and that's fine. You know, I'm not expecting them to follow it. I'm sort of just giving it as, you know, they've asked for it, and I'm like, yeah, this is what I would do. You know, I think this situation's good and you should drop this class because like it's an awful class and the teacher's horrible. And you know, 6 months later, they're complaining about how horrible the teacher is. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, that's so annoying. Like, oh, I hate bad teachers. Like, I'm not going to shove it in their face and be like, I told you he was a bad marker. Like, I told you he was an awful teacher. No, like, we don't do that. We're not that kind of friend. So it is a balancing act. I think you need to be courteous and humble. And, you know, if you're giving advice to somebody, don't expect them to follow it. Don't expect them to just like rush into any situation that like the way you would, you know? You got to have the compassion that, you know, your friends are going to do stuff that you completely disagree with and that you're like, seriously, why are they doing this? Like, what the heck? Like, no, this is totally wrong. And like, you can have that opinion, but don't share it, you know? Just leave your friends to do it, you know? Help them when they need it, jump in when they ask for it, but don't intervene unnecessarily. And once you've given the advice, just move on, you know? Don't like do a follow-up and be like, did you follow my advice? No, like nobody's like obligated to follow your advice to a T, right? And at the same time, trust your own judgment. Take the wisdom and the knowledge that's given to you and the advice that's given to you. But I do heavily favor your own personal judgment in making decisions, in deciding what you want to do, in deciding where you want to go, because it's just better, you know? Is this moving? I feel like this is moving. Like slowly, ever slowly down. Sorry, guys. I'm not good at this. As you know, I'm new at this. But anyway, there we go. Yeah, so I don't know. I was thinking about this and I'm interested in what you guys think about giving advice, receiving advice, dealing with people's advice, and then your own judgment and where you factor that in. Because I don't know, it's just interesting how humans come to decisions and how our lives are shaped. And you know, they say like your life is shaped by the 10 closest or the 7 closest people that you associate with, you know, like your 7 closest people like help shape your life. And I wonder if that has like a part of a factor to play with the advice you get from them, the sort of motivation, the kind of support you get, you know, those kinds of things, because they definitely affect my life quite drastically. I mean, my parents and my brother and my best friends all hugely influence how like the decisions I make and the stupid stuff I do, because I got some great friends and some pretty good family, pretty great family. So yeah, taking advice, you can take it, sit with it, contemplate it, wonder and question about it, but you got to use your own judgment. And sometimes you'll get bad advice, you know, sometimes you will get really horrible advice from people who have no business giving advice. And, you know, it's interesting. A lot of the time when I make a video on like TikTok or something, I will, I'll get comments about like, well, you should have done it this way. It would have been funnier if you did it this way. And like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, like maybe it would have been funnier that way. But other times I'm just like, no, like I'm good. Thank you. If you didn't like the video, you don't have to like it. But I don't need the advice for it. I'm happy to get it. Like, I don't care either way. But I find it funny that sometimes people will watch like something as silly as a TikTok, and they'll be like, oh, he could have done this so much better. And I'm like, well, why don't you make something, you know? And I'm not saying that in like a vicious, like, you go make it better. I'm saying it as like, if you genuinely have a better idea, like, you should be doing it, you know? It costs nothing to make a TikTok. It costs your time, your motivation, maybe a little bit of self-respect in my case, but yeah, like, go make it, you know? And if you observe something and you're like, man, they should have done it this way, go do that. Go create it, you know? And again, I'm not saying this in like a vicious, like, why don't you go go jump off a bridge? I'm saying, if you have a great idea or like a great concept that has been inspired by someone else, like you've gotten advice from that, go and create something, you know? Like, don't don't feel the need to just constantly give out advice. So I don't know. That's where we're at. Yeah, basically, there we go. I want to hear your comments. Let me know, taking advice versus your own personal judgment. That looks so weird. Sorry. I'm like all, anyway, sorry, ADD. Okay. Yeah, let me know your advice. Give me some advice. Give me some advice in the comments. What you think of this whole thing that I do. Feel free to give me a piece of advice, a piece of wisdom. I will humbly read them and receive them. I might not follow them, but I will read them. I will check them out. What was the best piece of advice you got in your life? That's a great question. Oh my gosh. I can't think of... Actually, my grandfather, before he died, said that you need to be willing to make way. And what he meant by that was you need to be willing to step aside or, bow down, change your mind. You need to be willing to give way in life in terms of your personal relationships. When you're having like a big argument, just be willing to give way. Don't necessarily completely convert or like change your mind, but, be willing to be like, okay, you might be right about that, And I think about that piece of advice a lot. So that's the advice that I got that I think was really helpful. Let me know what you got. And good luck. Trust your gut. Trust your judgment. It's funny how often your gut and just like a gut feeling about something is right. It's funny how often that happens, especially if you're a very intuitive person and you kind of figure these things out. I've had a lot of help. I'm not intuitive, but I've had a lot of help. Anyway, guys, thank you so much. And I will see you tomorrow.